Hello, everyone, friends and colleagues in medical affairs, in pharma, in medical devices. My name is Tim Mikilashvili, and today we're going to be talking about an amazing meeting we just attended, we just returned from, that took place in Paris, France, some time ago, which now seems to be so long, May 15th to 17th. And we're live. We're live on LinkedIn, on across social media, on YouTube as well, on Facebook. We have lots of our friends, colleagues attending, those who were in France, those who may have missed it. So make sure to comment. We're going to be sharing some of our highlights, our most memorable moments, but please add to the conversation. Today, I'm joined by my friends and leaders in medical affairs who are experts, who are moderated some sessions, who attended, who participated in a lot of the very innovative discussions that took place, forward-looking discussions. And so I'm going to introduce them real quick here. And we have Mark Shirokman, is a global chief executive officer of Medivoke, also global executive officer of Medistrava. Viorica Braniste, medical excellence director and patient engagement director at Kiowa Kirin, as well as Marcus West, CEO of 60seconds.com, and Meg Heim, president and founder of Heim Consulting Group, Global Heim Consulting Group. So I'll give you also a chance to introduce yourselves, but thanks everyone for joining.
Thanks for having us, Tim.
Yep, thanks.
Yeah. I know that there's a lot of interest in this meeting, and besides the fact that it took place in a very beautiful, memorable place, Paris, France, I want to ask you what your most memorable highlights were from a lot of the sessions that you moderated or attended. So, if whoever wants to start, please.
Tim, I'll jump in. So, first of all, it was great to see everybody in person. That was really amazingly exciting. I think from my standpoint, the engagement was really amazing, no matter if you were having coffee or you were at an event. One of the great presentations that I saw was actually a Kiowa Current presentation where they did qualitative research in R&D and medical work early on, and then actually published that research on the patient and really utilized that as they brought the products to market. So I think the message there was medical often and early. And we don't typically have a seat at the table early enough, which we're promoting always. But that's really one of the key components for me. That was an excellent presentation.
Okay. Yeah. So getting medical involved early, and that seemed to be a very recurring theme. And what I found interesting was that a lot of what I have observed in North America is also very true across Europe and across the globe. Same issues that we're facing and that we find of interest. Okay, Mark.
Yeah. Even to start off with, I think the vision to action, medical affairs, time to lead is such a key. It's such a great vision statement because, when you look at the medical affairs role and you went to some of the workshops, so I really enjoyed the workshops. I feel like those are areas where, they talk about either a case or a study or some information, and then we go into a breakout mode. And then within your groups, you discuss it. And a lot of times we not only talk about the success that's taking place, but we talk about some of the areas where they may have not had a conclusion. And those are really interesting because we can use that as a point of reference to improve upon. And those workshops, then when we get an opportunity then to present back as a group and have a broader discussion, are really worth their time and effort to be part of.
Yeah. Agree. Fully agree. Anyone else? Marcus, Viorica?
Yeah, sure. Look, I think I really enjoyed the field coaching day on the Sunday. We've got a particular interest in enhancing coaching culture. And I think that day was so interesting because it was a real deep dive into various skills around coaching. And I think one thing that I found, I think, humorous and very instructive at the same time was to actually see some examples of a virtual coaching interaction, and perhaps a not so good example to start with, and then a better example and why. And I think the power of reflecting on video to see exactly how people can improve that interaction is enormously important. I think the world of sales and sales coaching has for so long had structures and processes and ways to execute and create swim lanes for people to operate in and to strive for excellence. But I think in medical affairs, there's that's something that people are coming to grips with, and I think that's a really exciting possibility to work out how to share best practice, how to create an environment where people can really flourish in terms of the way that they communicate the scientific narrative.
Yeah. We have a very global audience, by the way. Our attendees are today here that you see are from New York, New Jersey, London, joining us from France. Viorica is joining from France. Meg, where are you from? I know you've been traveling. You were in Switzerland at the World Health Forum.
I made it back yesterday, so I'm in South Carolina, but I had the opportunity to go to Geneva after Paris and really work with the World Heart Federation and the World Health Assembly.
Yeah.
So, in those meetings, and much of what I heard at MAPS was so relevant about what we're doing early on to advance the lives of patients. But I think what was also important is where the science, where we really need that deep understanding of how our digital work and our science comes together to really provide global access and democratize information and scientific exchange.
Yeah. And it's a global, perspective also on coaching and the need for coaching that I wanted to also express and ask for your opinions. So Marcus's, comments. We had a leadership session led by Brent Bryant, right? So what are some of your opinions on the points Marcus brought up on the need for coaching in medical affairs, or what type of coaching? What is it? Business acumen, for example. Is it in the field medical affairs? Is it different areas? Eureka, maybe you can provide. I know you're in France, so
I may take that. Well, I think for coaching, we need coaching at more or less, or at least training at different levels. I know that we discussed a lot during these days about insights. How do we collect insights? What do we do with that? How do we communicate? And also we know that some of a source of the insights might be the field medical. So we discussed about how do we train them to be sure that they collect insights correctly. So meaning how do we train? How do we coach as well? And as I would also add the session that Marcus mentioned about the coaching, because in the digital area is quite difficult now. So it's interesting to see how we coach, and also we interact with different stakeholders, with patients, regulatory payers. So I would assume that we need also some trainings and develop some capabilities how to correctly interact with them.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I think we can all use not one coach, but multiple coaches, multiple mentors as well, particularly in this type of environment in which we live, in which we're very distracted, right? We spend more time alone digitally with our smartphones, and we tend to over-specialize in our area, in one area that we know, right? We're familiar with. So that's why I'm a big proponent of mentorship. Because I can trace any leaps I've made of success through the relationships I've made, mentors that I've had. And so this is a perfect time actually for us to promote being and to really raise the awareness of MAPS as an organization, because it's a huge community that it has built. So those of you who are joining here, those of you who are in pharma, in medical devices, in biotech, please take a look at MAPS, Medical Affairs Professional Society. Join, become active. All of us are active here that you see on this panel here today on LinkedIn Live. And also the mentorship program. We have a mentorship program that we kicked off in 2020. So, so Marcus brought up coaching. I would be remiss not to mention that. I see you smiling, Mark. You have some comments on mentorship and coaching, or?
Yeah, one of our breakouts was articulating the value of external education. So we actually had a forum where we had a workshop, and we really talked about how you can articulate the value, and really giving the audience some of the tools to do that. Because as you know, you have to sell things internally, and medical affairs is touching all areas. One of the things about medical affairs is it's growing, it's getting more complicated. They really need to show their value. And when you look at what's happening in the whole area over the last 2 years with COVID and the pandemic, everything has gone where it's gone digital. So the digital information has exploded, where in medical affairs, in the science area, it's actually outgrown other areas. So it's so important that we work on these skill sets so that we can sell internally, so that we can get the fundings to do the right things for medical affairs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Mark,
very well said.
I couldn't agree more. And I think one of the things that you mentioned, Tim, is about the silos. We had a field team, field day, which I've loved since the beginning. But in many countries, and many of our colleagues around the globe are wearing multiple hats. They're doing field, they're doing medical affairs. And in the countries where you're fortunate enough to have separate, um, it shouldn't be separate. And I think that's where a big piece of the coaching is showing the value of each person in the organization and how they connect together to make us all better. That's where the mentorship comes, that's where the coaching comes. Everybody's bringing such value, but we need to be able to communicate the value of each part of the organization.
Yeah. Hey, absolutely. Ben Bryant. I took the quote. I took a note, a picture of the quote that he shared. Ben Bryant, was our leadership keynote speaker, right, at MAPSME, and he said leaders are not paid to make the inevitable happen. They're paid to make happen what otherwise would not happen. So that was inspiring. I thought. So there's clearly a need for coaching, for really being able to demonstrate internal value, like Mark said, internally, not just based on technical performance, but based on how we communicate. And maybe we need to update and change how we communicate and collaborate internally and across the functions as well. And before I ask you about the next meetings, since Viorica did mention insights, I know there were several different sessions on insights, and one talked about inflation of insights, right? Because insights are probably one of the most valuable pieces of information that we communicate internally in medical across the different functions. But here's a slide from one of the sessions that I moderated, that I know Viorica was also part of, in terms of showing this impact of lag time on insights, from the time you generate them to when you capture them and you communicate them. And what if you were to change how you communicate those insights and you shortened that distance? Was something that we talked about in this session. Perhaps using a smartphone that has an API, or that's connected to the CRM that you're using, a database, for example. And so those were some of the discussions that took place on insights. Mark, I know that you were very active in both of those sessions. What are your takes on insights? How we can improve sharing them quicker, and the actionable insights that matter.
Yeah, and thank you, Tim. One of the things is when we look at data, what lens, what filter are we looking through, and what data are we looking at, and how often are we looking at? These are all like important questions that you need to ask. And it's once you get the insight, what strategy, and then how do you even look at it to say, how often you check back in to see if there's any kind of change or measurement that you can make. One of the key things that I heard during the course of the conference at MAPS was that, maybe at that point, maybe you should reach out and get a consultant or some help, because, what I said earlier too, it's a little overwhelming. We've been involved in so many different companies to be brought in for help. And, I feel for them because it is overwhelming. And, what budget do you have to apply and what timeline? So these are all important questions. But I think one of the key takeaways that I got was, it's okay to ask for help as a leader, because medical affairs is growing so much and things so quickly, it's important to ask for help. And there is a lot of companies out there that can help.
Yeah. So one of the memorable sessions was led by Abhishek Pal from Novartis, in the director of scientific communication there. And he wasn't able to make this session because of his schedule, but I want to share some of his highlights as well that he shared with me. So here they are. I mean, he has five highlights for all of us in medical affairs from this meeting. So number one, the critical role medical insights play in the development of an integrated medcom strategy and plan, which I think we also spoke about. Number two, cross-functional collaboration is essential in identifying the communication objectives, target audience beyond HCPs, and insights interpretation. So what stakeholders, right, and how we interpret those insights cross-functionally. And third, the co-creation journey is crucial rather than it being an exercise in compilation of final functional plans. So how do you really create that, generate the evidence with your cross-functional colleagues? Fourth was identifying channels and type of content is key to enhance reach and engagement among target audience. So what channels are you using, right? And fifth, predefining KPIs or performance metrics in order to measure success and refine strategy and plan execution, which is an iterative process. You have to refine the data, right? When I interviewed the chief growth officer at Salesforce, Tiffany Bova, she provided an interesting analogy that data is like oil. You can't pull up a car to the oil rig and fuel it up until it has to be refined. So any comments on those five takeaways from Abhishek there? Any one of those five that resonates with you?
For me, I really think that the cross collaboration is something that doesn't happen once a year. Okay, the strategy, medical's got to be involved in it. They are really, the tentacles reach deep and far into all parts of the organization. And, there's a lot of great things being done around the company, but it has to be brought together. As far as the analogy of pulling up to the oil rig, I couldn't agree more. Not only does it have to be refined, but you can't get refinement until you get better stuff in the beginning and a clear message to what you are communicating, what your strategy is, and then those insights make more or less sense. And then really measuring them and doing it in a way that's systematic and using technology from some of the companies that are out there right now from an AI standpoint. Many of us have data lakes in our companies at this point, but I think it's really important that also medical knows about what are those other things that can shorten that timeline that you talked about, Tim.
Yep. Yeah, thank you, Meg. So we're getting some comments, and I want to remind those of you who are watching, share your comments. Ask our experts here and our friends your questions, and also share some of your lessons as well. So one thing I want to ask is, did you find anything controversial? Did you find anything that was very surprising at this meeting?
So I will just say that during the plenary session that I had the opportunity to host, there was a question from the audience about how did people feel about commercial having off-label conversations.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if it's controversial or if it's a sign of the times. I believe medical has really shown their value during COVID. The deep relationships, the scientific conversations have gotten deeper because people need information. And so I think, you know, it's just a sign of the time.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it is going where it's going to end. I think there's clear guidance in countries about what medical can do and what commercial can do. But I do think it's a conversation we need to have and we need to look at very seriously.
Mm-hmm.
I'd just add to that comment there from Meg. I think what I've noted during the period of COVID is that I've never seen so many medical scientists on television as we have during this period. I didn't realize, in fact, that in the world there were so many epidemiologists. But I did find that from the beginning, there was this obviously need for them to be able to communicate their ideas, their insights in a succinct fashion. And one coming from outside and looking into the health sciences industry, I'm constantly told that unfortunately, a lot of MSLs, they do what is called the data dump. And so I think what a big challenge is the ability for that succinct, tight, compelling messaging. You know, we live in the TikTok age, we live in the Twitter age, and I think that's a great challenge for all of us to work out how to repackage something that is quite a dry message into something that really sticks.
Tim, we can't hear you.
Oh, okay. And yes, and Marcus, and you help some of the field medical affairs colleagues, right, with the coaching at 60seconds.com, right, to overcome that barrier, right, that digital, the few seconds of attention that you have, right? So I actually like the 60seconds.com. Very interesting, name for your company. So.
Well, I think it's about helping coaching too. I think coaching, that's why I was so interested in that field medical session, to see those conversations that happen. I mean, helping people to perform at their best it's an art form. And I think not only do MSLs need coaching, but coaches also need coaching too. Sure. And you've mentioned mentoring. You know, that's a great sort of way to have input for medical managers and medical advisors to really help them get the most out of that mentoring and that coaching conversations they're having internally with their people.
Yeah, something that I found, surprising that I didn't expect was medical affairs improving sales forecasting or making sales forecasts more accurate. That came up in a couple of sessions. So that was what was controversial or interesting, not controversial, encouraging actually for me. Did anybody hear that at some of the sessions? Or
I one of the sessions I actually heard the word ROI, and I was kind of shocked. So I think that as medical affairs becomes more part of the nucleus of making decisions, making things happen, they're also being scrutinized and being held accountable a little bit more. So I think they're looking for ways, when you take the example of even data has multiplied so much. And then really, whether you're looking at a platform or you're just looking at it through a lens, it's what strategy are you doing? And then what kind of effect are you having? So I think it's the effect of what are they putting out there? What are they disseminating? and then saying to themselves, all right, so how have we changed anything? So I think that now, as we look at it from that lens, and we look at it full circle, those are the things that I think are going to become important.
Yeah.
So, the comment of ROI, I really believe that the medical affairs groups really needs to sustain the dialogue of their impact, their KPIs. ROI is a commercial organization that people understand, but I don't believe medical has really put the nomenclature, the information around where the impact that they bring to the table. Impact on patient lives from a payer standpoint, impact from early on in clinical development with uh, engagement, with working with HEOR and publications, and what that impact is. So I think we've had impact. I think that we've not communicated it well. And I think that's part of the most, really important that medical gets on the front of this, because our legal colleagues do not want to hear ROI. Okay. But but the accountability is, what value do you bring?
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. That's an area of my interest, personal interest, Megan. I think we have to cross those borders somehow and redefine those gatekeepers that we create ourselves as well, potentially. So, yes. So I know I didn't attend as many sessions that I wanted to, and there's sessions that actually I missed on medical education, Mark, that I know you and Olga Salvidio did. But what I want to ask is, what topics do you want to see at the next European meeting? Just very quickly, maybe just take a few seconds to share topics that you'd like to see that may have not been covered, or you'd like to see covered in more detail.
I like this idea of leadership, and I really feel like MSLs are at the prow of this big ocean liner, and I really feel like they're ambassadors. So a little bit more about how MSLs can be ambassadors for medical science and for their organisation and for their patients.
Okay, great. Viorica, maybe, I know you're in France, and can provide us with a European perspective also.
I think in line with what Meg was saying is, how do we communicate? Because we were good in doing a lot of stuff in medical, but we are not quite good in communicating what we are doing and highlighting our value. So that's why probably this question of ROI is coming here. So that will be good to discuss with others and see how do we communicate our value within the company. And
okay, so you'd like to see it covered more next time. Okay.
I would love to see a session or a workshop on really taking maybe a data set and then a product and kind of doing a workshop through it to even bring it all the way out and say to yourself, all right, so this is our findings, this is our information, this is what we want to do, and then almost do a live presentation on maybe some results that could have happened from it, and how do you sell it internally to the different departments, as Meg talks about, and what is the benefit of the program? Was it a success or was it not? And looking at it a full circle like you would, because there's amazing people in the organization of MAPS, very smart, very articulate. And it is amazing when we have those workshops to hear from the different people who have experience that you may or may not have. So when we're in that mix, the pullouts from it, the moments of really takeaway really happen live there.
Yep.
And for me, it's really about, how do we elevate the medical affairs organization as a whole through communication, education. How, your mentoring program is great. It is at every level, though. How do we take medical to the next level? And that is always, that's kind of my message. And that is being able to have the value conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm looking forward to the next meeting. I know that there's a lot of innovation to come, and like Mark and all of you mentioned, there's a lot of new content that MAPS delivers, I think, to all of us. And when we do consider that innovation, since the meeting took place in France, in Paris, that Eiffel Tower in the beginning, it was actually protested by a lot of the elite, by the engineers, Noguier and Matt Coquelin, that when the architects, they persisted though, right? And even though the aristocrats elite called it a disaster, it's now a landmark for everyone to see. So we next meeting will take place in Portugal, in Lisbon, Portugal. So our new president of MAPS EMEA is Joao Diaz. So make sure to start planning it and putting it on your calendar. Those of you who are watching this, okay. So with this community, this close-knit community that we're building, we're also able to leave an important impression, in that country. I know we did that in New Orleans at the global meeting, and we probably did it in France. We'll hear more from Viorica about that. But where would you like to see the next European meeting? Is my after Portugal?
I have two cities, actually, country cities. I like Florence and Barcelona.
Florence and Barcelona. Okay. What about the others?
I would say
Berlin.
So Berlin. Okay. And
Milan.
Oh, Milan. Okay.
I'm very flexible. I like food. You know what I mean? If you give me some good food and some good entertainment, I think we're in good shape. So I'm very flexible.
Okay, I like that, Mark. I used to have this rule that I only travel to places where I speak the language or I like the food. But I'm extending that definition. Yeah, I don't have to speak the language. Even if the food is good, if my medical affairs colleagues are there, like you guys, then I'm going to be there. You can count on it. Well, I'll share some pictures here of some. This is Georgia. This is Tbilisi, Georgia, because I was born in Eastern Europe in the small country. Look, this is a dream. Why not? Why not meet here? Okay, Tbilisi, Georgia, wine drinking place, right? And then Italy, maybe Rome. Viorica mentioned Florence, but we went to Paris. Why not go to Rome as well? Maybe. So with those pictures, with those images, looking forward to our next MAPS EMEA meeting. Join us. Join MAPS. Join the European meeting. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for being here. Let's share. Oh, we have some comments, I think. So I just want to. We have some votes. Okay, for next play. Mary Gluckle votes Barcelona. So we have 2 votes for Barcelona. Yes. Oh, she's hanging out with Meg. Mary's going to hang out with you, Meg. And Gorana Dasic. So, here's a comment that I missed earlier. Maybe also consider to bring representative of prescribers and patients and hear from them what their needs and priorities are. So, and that came out in one of the insight sessions that Viorica marked that all 3 of us were in. When I asked the audience, are we missing something in terms of insights? Who are we getting insights from? There was a very emphatic comment from one of the attendees on patient advocacy or getting patient insights. So, and she votes for Dubrovnik, of course. Okay, Gorana. So, well, thank you very much. Add to this conversation, add your comments, what you found valuable. And so have a great day, a great rest of the day. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Tim.
Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.